live on tape via Zoom from his home in Darden Prairie, your pastor and mine, Pastor Mike Schreiner. Woo! Woo!
Thank you for that incredible welcome. Sit down, everybody, please have a seat. I gotta admit, man, this feels a little weird with the first reality check at home, stay at home order, trying to be good citizens here. So before we get into things, how are you and the family doing?
Oh, we're doing pretty good. I'm an introvert, and so this is great for me. Hey, can we do more of this? This sounds right. But my wife, Laura Lise, is the total extrovert. She's swinging on a chandelier right now. I'll get her down sometime around 3.
I got a recommendation. It's called a yoga hammock. You need one of those for your dining room.
Who doesn't need a yoga hammock these days?
That's right. That's right. Hey, real quick. Sorry, Dustin. Can we take 5? I forgot my coffee.
Yeah, guys, take 5.
You got it. Hey, dude.
Yeah.
What? Are you one of those dudes who wears a suit on the top and the shorts on the bottom?
Well, yeah. I mean, we're working at home. It's like, I always wanted to be one of those ESPN sportscasters, and they just wear the stuff up here, and they've got the sweatpants or the shorts underneath. And I'm getting ready to go out for a jog right after this. I'm taking this off, and I'm.
No. Keep the tie on. Keep the tie.
Guys, we're rolling. We're rolling.
All right.
We're rolling. Okay.
Back to it.
Speaking of shortcuts, that cardboard cutout thing they have at the church they put up?
Yeah.
Like full,
Right. It's you, except it's on cardboard. Yeah.
Cardboard, full size, and it's a little thinner than I am, but they put it up on the stage and they adjust the lights, right? So
lighting thing.
This great idea. So many Zoom meetings these days, and most Zoom meetings, honestly, aren't as fun as this one. Some of them can get like a meeting, boring. So I brought the cardboard cutout home.
I see.
I just turned the screen to the cardboard cutout, and I just walk away.
Right. Well, nobody ever caught. Have you ever been busted? Have you ever been caught?
Never. Not once. Not busted one time. You know what? I honestly think everybody else is doing the same thing. I think everybody else has got a picture of themselves, and they put up on the screen, and nobody really notices except the guy who's talking. And Keith.
Well, oh, yeah. Oh, that's a wonderful point, Pastor. And of course, you always have a great theological mind. And so, wonderful point.
I think that was deep in John's gospel. I mind that one.
Yes, I believe of course you're right. Of course.
Whatever it takes to be sane these days, right?
Hey, what a great segue. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the reality check stage, mental health expert and counselor, Dwain Sliger.
Hey. Welcome, Dwain.
Good evening. How is everyone?
We're doing great. Thanks for being with us here.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I'm working from my West office today.
There you go. Is that IE home, or is that the actual office?
That's IE home.
All right. Very good. Stay at home order. Hey, before we jump into the actual questions, let's just lay all of our cards on the table. Connect the dots for a few people. You're married to Morningstar royalty here, right? Sliger?
That's correct. Laura Sliger, the director of children's ministry. As I joke with her, I've been promoted from a knave to a knight, somehow grafted into the royal family. It makes me feel good.
That's great. I love it. Are you guys doing well there at home?
Mike, we're doing pretty well. I would say on a scale of 1 to 10, we're probably doing about 7.5. Not bad. Keeping our normal routines, exercising, keeping up with what we do. Our family dogs are loving this. They have been walked more in the past 4 weeks probably than ever. But we're focusing on what's valuable, what we can control, and ignoring what we can't.
That's great. That is great. So right now, give the folks who don't maybe know you, give a little bit of your background and why we're having you here tonight as a mental health expert.
Very good. Well, I'm a licensed professional counselor in the state of Missouri and also an advanced alcohol and drug counselor in the state of Missouri. So my background has been pretty varied. Before I went into my private practice, I was a chaplain in the United States Navy. I got off active duty and went to work at the St. Patrick's Center with the Department of Veterans Affairs and Department of Mental Health, getting homeless veterans into housing and providing them with much needed services. So from that, I've been in the people business for a long, long time.
Yeah, you've seen a lot, I'm sure. What in this season though? What are you seeing that may be different or just really spiking right now?
You know, Mike, I'm seeing a collection of symptoms. I'm still doing sessions with my clients via Zoom, or there's another program I use called DoxyMe. And I think it's important because people need to have access to care, and especially uninterrupted care if they've been in a therapeutic setting for a majority of their time. One of the things that I'm seeing is I'm keeping up with trends. And the latest trend I read is that 45% of Americans are beginning to experience mental health issues. So one of the things that I'm seeing is that people's cups runneth over, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
You know, they're having a hard time keeping things in the boundaries. So I'm seeing a collection of symptoms beginning to merge. Like, for example, an increase in anxiety, mood problems, sleep issues, phobic behaviors, substance use, panic and worry. And some are even beginning to experience some post-traumatic stress symptoms as well. I'm also seeing people who are grieving. And it may be something we pay attention to because the life that they knew is no longer now. And I think they're trying to figure out how to adjust because grief and fear go together quite well. So I also see too that there's a drive for people to have a lot more access to information. And that's something I've been spending my time on working with folks, is that it's okay to be informed, but let's not get overwhelmed with the data and the information, because that too can cause an increase in anxiety in our lives.
Man, that's something that I'm experiencing. It's like every day I open up my email and there's like 78,000 things about, you know, what you need to know and how you need to take the next step and what's next. And it just feels like, you know, the other day I just started deleting them all because honestly, they're all kind of saying a lot of the same things. Hey, so thank you for that list. And I can only imagine the needs out there. What would a person want to look for in themselves? What would they look for in a family member right now? Signs of stuff to kind of, hey, I might need to reach out. I might need to, you know, talk to someone.
Yeah, that's a great question. One of the things that we have to remember is that when we're dealing with anxiety or depression, what we're actually dealing with is a cluster of symptoms. And each person will experience that in a different capacity. But overall, let me just give you a broad sweep of what you could expect to look for, not only in yourself, but also in a family member. Primarily look for an increase in restlessness, feeling keyed up, on edge. Maybe there's anger appearing where otherwise it wasn't before. The other part too is that look for being easily fatigued, difficult in concentrating, muscle tension. We just don't experience anxiety in our head, we experience in our body as well, such as that mysterious backache or stomach ache that all of a sudden appeared. The other thing too to keep an eye on, and I'm really big on this in my practice, is I ask people, how well are you sleeping? Sleep is definitely one of the top priorities of self-care. If we're not sleeping well, we can expect to find an increase in anxiety and also depression. The other thing too to keep in mind, our attention to, is thoughts of self-harm or of harming someone else. I would anticipate sometimes in these close quarters that couples may get on their last nerve, and especially if there's been a history of conflict, it's something that we've got to watch out for. As a matter of fact, there's two numbers I could give you at the end of our interview that people could call if they're experiencing problems, and they could be connected to some free help as well. But I think there's a certain amount of fear during our time, and fear, a little bit of fear is okay, because fear teaches us, and fear can teach us also to survive. But here's the problem. If we have fear, we also need information. COVID-19 is real. It's not something that we have created. We can read the news and see that there are consequences to this virus. But the problem arises when we have the fear and we don't have the information. We begin to get into anxiety. And anxiety creates information that in many cases is not true. And that's when we begin to dwell on the what ifs. So I encourage people, if you find yourself in a loop of dealing with the what ifs, all you're trying to do is reach for some certainty. And if that's the case, it becomes chronic. If it becomes chronic, we become panicky. If we become panicky, we begin to experience worry. And when we worry, we really think we're doing something because we're worrying, right? But we're really not doing much at all. We're just adding to that cycle of fatigue, and it creates a horrible feedback loop because it doesn't fix anything.
Right. I love the analogy of the worry like a rocking chair. You spend a lot of energy, but you go nowhere, right?
Exactly.
You mentioned some of the things that you and Laura are doing with, taking your walks, maintaining, your regular rhythms. What advice do you have to folks about practices that they can do to keep their mental health right now?
Yeah, very good question. I think there are some practical, doable steps that an individual could put into practice at this time. The first one I want to start with, because unfortunately many in my profession don't talk about this, but I do talk about it in my profession, and I call it soul care, caring for your soul. It's a valuable part of who we are. We have thousands of years of tradition that talk about this. So I think people were onto something a long, long time ago. For example, pray. Pray in a way that is comfortable for you. We don't have to pray for 3 hours, but we can set aside 5 to 10 minutes of time to pray. And prayer is more about listening sometimes than it is about speaking. Take time to meditate. And the other thing, connect with others who are healthy. That's part of soul care. Connect with people who want the best for you, and also people for whom you want the best for. I think this is an important part. I think that's why the body of Christ, for example, our small groups that we've had at Morning Star are still an important part of keeping connected with people who know your story and who are looking out for you as well. The other thing I would tell people, pay attention to your body. Pay attention to what's going on with your thinking, with your feeling, and with your behavior. As someone who's trained in cognitive behavioral therapy, this is a place where I like to start with folks, is to keep a journal. I mean, it doesn't have to be the next bestseller, but keep a mood log. Write down how we feel, but understand we don't have to take on that feeling. Sometimes it's just a fleeting feeling, or sometimes it's a trail we need to explore. But keep it in a small boundary and say, I may be feeling anxious today, or I may be feeling depression today, but that doesn't mean that depression has to occupy my whole day. I'm going to sit you here in a boundary, and I'm going to keep an eye on you. That way we get a good track of what we're experiencing, and maybe during certain times when we're experiencing. The third thing, develop meaningful routines. Routines are sort of important in our life because we are problem solvers and we like to have things to do. Boredom is not new to our age. People have been bored ever since time began, but we've always filled it with new and exciting things. And this is how we flourish. Keep your bedtimes the same, keep your wake up times the same, because our circadian rhythms are important to our mental health. And once those get off balance, we're going to see some changes in our bodies as well. The other thing, and I know social distancing is a big part of our life right now. I was reading where 92% of people are actually practicing social distancing. I don't really know how they got the survey results, but it was an interesting number. Is that get outside if you can. Exercise, do yoga, interact with others, social media, make a meal, do something that helps the body stretch. It's important. And if you can't get outside, then look outside, raise the window, breathe some air, go get a sun lamp. It'll make us feel better. The other thing, as we're practicing social distancing, I would encourage folks, and I've been coaching folks in my own practice for the past 4 weeks, to practice some social media distancing. Gauge your times, 30 minutes in the morning, 30 minutes in the afternoon, but not before you go to bed. Don't let that be the last thing you think about. Limit your exposure to social media and some of the hype and anxiety that it can create. Our environments play a role in shaping our anxiety. Lastly, talk to a therapist or your pastor if you're experiencing these things. With this technology like we're using this evening, it's easier now than ever to connect with folks who are also struggling. So could I give those 2 phone numbers?
Please do, Dwain.
Yeah.
Thank you for being here and for being a resource. We really are trying to live out our vision here of refreshing, restoring, and resourcing people, even in the midst of stay at home. So those numbers would be incredibly helpful.
Yeah, very good. The first one I'd like to give is from the National Suicide Hotline, and it's 1-800-273-8255. The other one is from Behavioral Health Response, which is located in St. Louis County. It's 314-469-6644.
That's great, Dwain. You've given me a whole lot to think about. I love the idea of distancing yourself from people who we want to do this normally, to distance ourselves from people who are going to bring us down. But the fact of connecting with healthy people, I love that healthy part, and then the social media distancing too. All great information. Thank you for those numbers. And most of all, brother, thank you for you and all you do and for your time with us this evening. Appreciate you.
Thank you, Pastor. I appreciate you having me here. And as you reminded us Sunday in the sermon, we're Easter people.
Amen, brother. While it was still dark, God was still working.
Very good. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate the time.
Have a great rest of the week, brother.
Appreciate you. Thank you.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us on this segment of Reality Check. Make sure that you join us next week as my guest will be Miss Mary Lepak. She is the communications director for the Wentzville School District. And given the fact that all the campuses are closed and the kids are doing all their learning remotely, it should be quite an enlightening interview. So God bless you, and we'll see you next week on Reality Check.